As we all know, Twitter got a lot of criticism for censoring a New York Post piece that alleged all sorts of things against Hunter Biden. We talked about it at great detail. But before that happened, they actually censored something else that's been going on their platform, something that some experts are referring to as digital blackface. Well, what is that? Well, Twitter halted an unknown number of fake accounts claiming to be Black people supporting Donald Trump for breaching the platform's ban on manipulating the site and spreading spam. The accounts were identified for using uniform language and tweets that included things like, "Yes, I'm Black and I'm voting for Trump," in all caps. Many of the accounts used profile pictures of Black men taken from news reports and other sources. Several of the accounts claimed to be from members of groups with pro-Trump leanings, including veterans, police officers, steelworkers, businessmen, and avid Christians. One of the fake accounts had, in the place of a profile photo, the words "Black man photo," a hint of sloppiness by the network's creators. So, I mean, look, I feel like anyone with a pulse knew that this was going on with Twitter. I think it's pretty easy to suss out the questionable accounts, the sock puppet accounts. I think they're getting a little more sophisticated, but usually you can tell when you're dealing with bots. And unfortunately, there are plenty of them on Twitter. And all you need to do is look at polling data to see that Donald Trump doesn't have like this magical influx of Black support. He's been terrible to Black people, to people of color, to immigrants. He's been brutal and openly so. But Waz, why don't you jump in? What do you think about this? Do you think Twitter should be taking these types of steps?
I don't, honestly, not for something like this, not for the Black bots, if you will. I actually had a conversation not too long ago on my podcast, Hoops Adjacent, with the legendary Hall of Famer David Aldridge. He mentioned that anytime he tweets about anything Black related, he gets spammed by it. And I was like, damn, I guess I'm not woke enough because I've never gotten one in my life. I've never interacted with them. I have a problem with the Twitters and the Facebooks sort of being the editors or the gatekeepers of sort of right and wrong. I think hate speech and things of that nature are different than just, sort of political propaganda, misinformation. Because something like a New York Post article, I'm sorry, outlets like TYT and the New York Times and the Washington Post and all these other outlets that have a super duper huge reach will be able to debunk and get that out the paint. And if they really wanted to, they could just tip the scale on the algorithm. You know what I mean? Make sure that the stuff that's actually true is getting out there and being pushed at a more dramatic rate than some of the other stuff. But the idea that you would just not allow them to post it at all on Twitter, I think is a very, very, very slippery slope. And I think one of the great things about something like social media is that somebody can go viral who's just a normal person just because they put something out that people that are catching on with people. And if you stamp this out, there might come a day when they want to stamp that kind of stuff out. And so that's why I'm just like, I'm not a cheerleader for this kind of thing, even if it's stamping out the kind of stuff that I guess we're supposed to be against anyway.
Yeah, look, we covered that New York Post situation on the show yesterday, and I wholeheartedly agree. I mean, first of all, if you want to avoid circulation of that story because of the inaccurate nonsense in it, and there was inaccurate nonsense in it, and that, by the way, that whole story is like being dismantled as we speak because Rudy Giuliani is a clown and he can't keep his own story straight. So like, with stuff like that, leave it up to the free marketplace of ideas. Let's have robust debate. Let's provide evidence. Let's go ahead and debunk the nonsense coming out in that story. We did that in the context of discussing censorship, right? We discussed how the censorship is wrong, but we also were able to debunk the claims in that story. That's what you should do. I do agree that it's a slippery slope. I think that there are some instances where there's evidence of actual humans being harmed, right? physically. And in those cases, it makes sense to censor some material. So for instance, the fact that Alex Jones was going after the Posner family, they lost their little boy in Sandy Hook, and Alex Jones made them a target. And they had to move 8 different times because of their, they worried about their own security. When you're talking about people who are fearful for their lives as a result of the activity that's taking place on these platforms, I think you can have a discussion. When it comes to content from laughable, clownish publications like the New York Post, like, all right, let's have it, right? Let's have a conversation about it. I just don't think it makes sense to have this massive corporation serve as the arbiter of what is and is not acceptable on the platform, especially since this is a platform where so many people get their news.
And let's face it, Ana, you're living proof of why we don't need this. You've gone viral dunking on and debunking stupidity like this countless times. So I don't need Jack Dorsey's extra help here. I got Ana Kasparian on my side, y'all.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Yeah, and like, by the way, they had censored the content before they had determined whether it was false. Like, that's an issue, and it creates a situation where the Republican Party can further this narrative that they're like,
they can victimize themselves, turn themselves into martyrs.
Yeah, and that's exactly what happened. Like, every time something like this happens, you have elected officials like Senator Ted Cruz whining and crying about it, making themselves out to be the professional victims. And then you have the Dave Rubins of the world who, without this victimization, like literally couldn't earn a paycheck. So let's not empower them with accusations of censorship and how they're being, how they feel aggrieved. Let's go ahead and allow these articles to exist. They're gonna exist no matter what. I didn't even want to read it until it was censored. After it was censored, I wanted to read it because that's how human nature works. Don't try to censor people. I think it usually yields counterproductive, counterproductive outcomes.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Ana, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.